The Last of Us games are interesting ones to say the least. Running through both games are multiple storylines with one major overarching story. These stories and the characters that drive the stories are filled with emotion and realism. So much so that it's prompting this video. Games like these are wonderful because they tend to have a different effect on different people. In fact, you might be playing a game one day and then play it again days, weeks, months, or years later, and it can have an entirely different effect on you. Such is the case of the Last of Us games. So this is a father's perspective on The Last of Us. A game like The Last of Us, either the first or the second, can have so much to say and can be interpreted on many different levels. And as someone who has played this game more times than I care to admit, I have seen the game through different eyes. And in order to have this discussion, I do have to warn you for story spoilers. So if you're someone who has not played either game, I highly suggest you do so you can go on your own emotional roller coaster. Now that you made the decision to stay, we can continue our discussion. Last of Us 2 is by no means a masterpiece or a perfect game. But what it does do is bring out the raw emotions of its players, a job it does do perfectly. And as we look into the story, I would like to ask you all watching and listening to put aside whatever opinions you have for the second game and hear me out. At its core, Last of Us Part 2 is about fathers and daughters. There, I said it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. In all seriousness though, let me explain. While I could say the game is about parents and their children, and that would technically be correct, it's much more specifically complicated than that. You see, I'm a father of 2 daughters. And as a father with 2 daughters, I care for them and look after them in different ways than my wife does. And on top of that, there is also a difference between how we care for a son and how we care for a daughter. If The Last of Us were about a father and a son, the game would follow more of a path of God of War on the PS4. A good game in its own right, but it clearly shows the relationship of a father and a son in a less complicated way, which means it's a bit more cliche than anything else. In the first Last of Us, we are presented with Joel and his daughter Sarah. With Joel being the only parent, we are clearly shown the very close and loving relationship between the two.
Here.
What's this?
Your birthday? You kept complaining about your broken watch. So I figured, you know. You like it?
Honey, it's
What?
nice, but I think it's stuck. It's not.
What? No. Oh, ha ha.
Where did you get the money for this?
Drugs. I sell hardcore drugs.
Oh, good. You started helping out with the mortgage then.
Yeah, you wish.
And in the introduction, we get to fall in love with these characters only to have it cut short with the outbreak and the death of Joel's only daughter, Sarah. Now, the first Last of Us released on June of 2013, 1 month before my second daughter was born. It wasn't until about a month after she was born that I started to play Last of Us. During this time, I would be staying up late so my wife could sleep and take care of our daughters while I was working during the day. And so, because of this, I was running on very little sleep. But I did this because it needed to be done. So due to this, my emotions seemed to be at an all-time high. So you can imagine me with a PS3 controller in my hands, with my newborn daughter in my arms, as I sat on the couch, cradling her, weeping as Joel held his daughter the same way.
We're not sick.
Got a couple of civilians in the outer perimeter. Please advise.
Daddy, what about Uncle Tommy?
We're gonna get you to safety and go back for him, okay?
Sir, there's a little girl. But... Yes, sir.
Listen, buddy, we've just been through hell. Okay, we just need... Shit. Please don't. Oh, no. Sarah. Move your hands, baby. I know, baby, I know. Listen to me, I know this hurts, baby. You're gonna be okay, baby. Stay with me. All right, I'm gonna pick you up. I know, baby, I know it hurts. Come on, baby, please. I know, baby, I know. Sarah. Baby. Don't do this to me, baby. Don't do this to me, baby. Come on. No. No. No, no, no. Please. 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 Please don't. Please.
It was this moment that captivated me and made me fall in love with the story of the game. This moment at 3 a.m. where I held my daughter I had just welcomed into the world, and at the same time, Joel was holding his daughter as he was forced to say goodbye to her. The game fast forwards 20 years, and we quickly see how this world has not allowed Joel to deal with the loss of his baby girl. And it is through this that we are introduced to Ellie. Throughout the first game, we see the bond grow between the two as they travel for the better part of a year. Through their adventure, you see them care and fall in love with each other like a father and daughter. And it's here that we see the difficult decisions that lead into part 2. You see, Ellie is immune to the fungal outbreak, and the group that entrusted her to Joel, the Fireflies, believe that she holds the key for the cure. The problem here is that they did not tell Ellie or Joel that they would have to kill her to be able to try and find the cure. As you reach the end of the game, Joel soon finds out, and it's here that we see his fatherly rage. You see, there's a difference between a father and a mother in a way we react towards our daughters. Same as our sons. There is a reason why commonly heard phrases such as mama's boy or daddy's girl exist. Mothers, and I don't mean all, so don't take offense, will tend to coddle their sons more than a father will. A boy falls and scrapes his knee, a mother will put a band-aid and kiss the injury. A father will tell him to stand up and it's not a big deal and to walk it off. And I don't want to hear complaints about toxic masculinity, because having some healthy masculinity is okay. You see, I was raised by my mother most of my life, for example. Daughters, on the other hand, bring out the full force of protection from fathers. We will do everything in our power to protect our little girls without a second thought. And that's not to detract anything from mothers, because I'm sure there are plenty of mothers who would in fact do the same. But in this situation, this is exactly what Joel did, as he was going to make damn sure he was not going to lose his daughter again. And as we get to part 2, we see Joel is recounting the final events of the first game, and we get to see this blind fatherly rage in Joel's face and his eyes as Jerry Anderson is trying to take Ellie away from him. It is through this scene that we get to see the guilt Joel has to live with for keeping his daughter, Ellie, alive. That the selfish decision will forever haunt him, though he will never regret it. And through my own eyes as a father, I understand 100%. You see, I have a sleeping disorder. This was caused from me having children. Once they were born, something changed in me to where I always seemed to be on high alert. So at night, I'm a light sleeper, and I wake up for everything. In fact, the only times I can sleep uninterrupted is during the day, when they are at school, or when my wife is awake to watch them. And the reason I mention this is because every inch of me is always wanting to protect them, regardless of what happens to me. even if it leads me to making poor decisions that could have an adverse effect on my life.
Come on, baby girl. I got you. I got you. Cover the exit. Don't let him get away.
You can't save her. Even if you get her out of here, then what? How long before she's torn to pieces by a pack of clickers? That is, if she hasn't been raped and murdered first.
It ain't for you to decide.
It's what she'd want. And you know it. Look. You can still do the right thing here. She won't feel anything.
What the hell am I wearing?
Just take it easy. Drugs are still wearing off.
What happened?
We found the fireflies. Turns out there's a whole lot more like you, Ellie. People that are immune. There's dozens, actually. Ain't done them a damn bit of good, neither. They've stopped looking for a cure. I'm taking us home. I'm sorry.
Wait! Let me go. Please.
You just come after her.
Goddamn. That's some. That's a lot. What does Ellie know?
I told her they just ran some tests. I told her her immunity meant nothing.
And she believed you?
I didn't say otherwise.
As we play through the game, Joel meets his death at the hands of Abby, as she gets her revenge on Joel for killing her father, and this happens in front of a helpless Ellie. From this point forward, we see the relationship of Ellie and Joel told through flashbacks and things we find in Joel's house. Through these flashbacks, we see Joel teaching her to play guitar, how to swim, and we see him go through lengths to give her a wonderful birthday by taking Ellie to a museum of natural history and space. Two things she was infatuated with. It is here that we get one of the best father-daughter moments in a video game or any media. In this moment, we get to see the two bond as Joel tells Ellie all he knows about dinosaurs, even if the info he knows is from Jurassic Park. And as they explore the area and visit the different attractions at the museum, it all comes together in a beautifully written and acted moment when Ellie and Joel climb into a space capsule, and Joel hands her a Walkman with a cassette that had the recordings of a space launch. It is this particular scene where we get to see the love they have for each other, and we learn that Joel, as her father, would do anything in his power to keep her happy and safe.
I do okay.
Are you fucking kidding me?
You're welcome, kiddo.
This scene in particular seems to resonate with everyone who has played this game, and for me, it is absolutely the most important moment for their relationship. It is unfortunate that the flashbacks that follow begin to show the degradation of their relationship as Ellie, who is suffering from survivor's guilt, starts to find out the truth of that day when they were going to operate on her. Throughout the next years, we see Ellie and Joel becoming distant as she begins questioning Joel. And as Ellie's questions about that day pester her, she eventually makes her way back to Salt Lake City and the now empty Firefly camp. It is at the camp she learns the truth about what Joel did from a recording that was left behind. Now with this newfound information, she confronts Joel. The confrontation leads to an argument between the two that acts as a final wedge in their relationship. Ellie tells Joel she's done and she wants nothing to do with him, but that she will stay in Jackson. This gives Joel hope that eventually they can make amends one day.
I was one of the ones that wanted to go after the smuggler and the girl. They said, even if we found her or by some miracle found someone else that's immune, it'd make no difference. Because the only person who could develop a vaccine is dead. Or by some miracle found someone else that's immune, it'd make no difference. Found someone else that's immune, it'd make no difference. Because the only person...
Ellie! Come here. What the hell were you thinking? Running off in the middle of the night like that. You talk to me. You don't just leave me a goddamn note.
Tell me what happened here. If you lie to me one more time, I'm gone. You will never see me again. But if you tell me the truth, I'll go back to Jackson. No matter what it is. Just say it. Joel.
vaccine. Would have killed you. So I stopped them.
Oh my God.
Don't you fucking touch me! I'll go back. But we're done.
As a son and a parent myself, we are far from perfect. There will be times when we make decisions on a whim, usually rash decisions, because that's what the situation demands. My own parents were far from perfect, but I like to believe they did the best they could. And yes, there have been times where I've argued with my own parents, and in doing so, there's been times where I've not spoken to them for months at a time. But time does heal wounds, and eventually we would make amends. In the case of Ellie and Joel, it took almost a year. After all this time, at a party in Jackson, at Seth's bar, Ellie kisses Dina, her love interest, which prompts Seth to act out and confront Ellie as he's homophobic. This prompts Joel to intervene, which leads to a brief altercation between himself and Seth. This response from Joel is something that hits me as a father. That no matter what is going on, I will always step forward to protect my own daughters, even if they don't agree and act as Ellie did. A little while later, that night, Ellie makes her way to Joel's house. It is here that I mention these scenes are played in a flashback, because the way the story is told, these scenes come at the end of the game. And for a while, I was confused as to why it was told this way. But as I look at this game through the eyes of a parent, it becomes much clearer. You see, as a parent, you sometimes wonder what your legacy will be. What will be remembered by your children after you are gone? Will they remember your jokes? Will they remember your songs? Will they remember your lessons? These are just some of the things that goes through my own head when thinking about my own daughters. The reason why I mention this is because after Joel's death, we see that legacy. We see Joel's dad joke.
What is the downside to eating a clock? It's time consuming.
That's so dumb.
We see Joel singing for Ellie.
If I ever were to lose you, I'd surely lose myself. Everything I have found here, I'm not found by myself. Try and sometimes you'll succeed to make this man of me. All my stolen missing parts I've no need for anymore, 'cause I believe, 'cause I can see our future days, days of you and me.
we see Ellie playing guitar, the same song Joel sang and played for her. But the most important lesson above all else doesn't come until the end of the game. During the final confrontation with Ellie and Abby, it is during this fight where we see the final lesson that Ellie has learned. And this is told through the flashback scene. The final scene and moment where Ellie and Joel were last together at Joel's house. Here, Ellie is finally ready to speak with Joel after almost a year. But more importantly, she's ready to listen. And in finally listening to Joel, he informs her that if he had to relive that moment at Utah with her on the operating table, he would do it all over again. And it is here that Ellie learns the most important lesson of her life: how to forgive.
You're such an asshole.
I'm not trying to.
I was supposed to die in that hospital. My life would have fucking mattered. But you took that from me.
If somehow the Lord gave me a second chance at that moment, I would do it all over again.
I don't think I can ever forgive you for that. But I would like to try.
I'd like that.
After all this time of trying to find the truth of that day and all the anger, she was finally ready to try and mend their relationship. But the tragedy of the game is that we never get to see that relationship heal, as Joel is killed the following day. And yet, the lessons live on in Ellie, as when she fights Abby with full intent on killing her to avenge Joel, all Ellie can think about is how Joel would not want this, and so Ellie lets go, and in frustration, she allows Abby to leave. Ellie is finally ready to move on. Joel was not a perfect father, and there were many times where I would not even consider him to be a good person, as he would do many things for selfish reasons, particularly in the first game. But out of this selfishness, he remembered what it was like to be a good father. And it was partially due to this reminder that gave him his kindness back, and what prompted him to save Abby. Many complained that Joel would not have been open to Abby and the others based on the event of the first game. And while they are right, they are also terribly wrong, as this is no longer Joel the smuggler. Because as I mentioned, having children, and more specifically daughters, changes a man. Being a father is more than just a blood relation. Being a father is doing whatever it takes for your children to help them succeed in life And this is who Joel was by the events of the second game. In helping Abby, he was no longer selfish, but a father with his own daughter, even if that did lead to his demise. There are very few games that make me revisit them. And this is a game that sticks with me. And from this father of 2 daughters, I thank you for taking this journey with me.
Everything I have found here, I'm not found by myself. Try and sometimes you'll succeed to make this man of me. All my stolen missing parts, I've no need for any more. 'Cause I believe, and I believe 'cause I can see our future days, days of you and me. Back when I was feeling broken, I focused on a prayer. You came deep as in the ocean, did something out there here. All the complexities in games, no one wins, but somehow they still play. All the missing crooked hearts, they may die, but in us they live on. And I believe, and I believe, 'cause I can see our future days, days of you and me. When hurricanes and cyclones reach, when winds turn dirt to dust, when floods they came, when tides they raised, ever closer became us. And all the promises at sundown, I met them like the rest. All the demons used to come round, I'm grateful now they've left. So persistent in my ways, hey angel, I am here to stay. No resistance, no alarms, please, this is just too good to be gone. And I believe, and I believe, 'cause I can see our future days, days of you and me, you